Welcome back to my channel. I'm Yvonne Davis. I'm an author and astrologer, and on my channel I do political astrology and general astrology. So if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I hope that you will. And also, if you like the video, please click like. Feel free to share with your friends and family and on your social media. And also, please feel free to comment. I absolutely love all of your comments, and I thank you so much for everything, all of the very kind things that you've said, and also just like adding to the conversation. A lot of people have been bringing in really important information to share on the channel, so I really appreciate that. All right, so my last political video, I talked about the alignments on May 27th, and I want to look at some different charts today. So if you haven't seen that, I'll put the link in the description box below so you can easily go back and look at that. That way I'm not covering identical information in the two videos, but I do want to say something about that. Okay, so those alignments were on May 27th, 2019, and that also happened to be Memorial Day. So, so the thing about the timing that I want to explain when I'm doing these predictions is that it's sort of like when time is spread out, it's like an accordion. When it's spread out, it's harder to see, but when you squeeze it in like an accordion and you just look at the bumps, those are the highlights, and then you can see how they're tied together. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. So the May 27th alignments were very important. So what we want to do is look at what happened that day. So first of all, it was Memorial Day, which I think is actually important. It's part of it's. I think it's actually part of the mix, and then Trump was in Japan meeting with officials there, and at the same time there were North Korea was testing some ballistic missiles, and Trump said it was no big deal, and he was also talking trash about Biden, saying that he had a low IQ. So it's like he acts like he's friends with the dictator of North Korea, and the whole thing was just very bizarre. So, and I said that I predicted that he would be saying unusually bizarre things, but honestly, I don't think that was unusually bizarre. I think that was his normal bizarreness. So, so I'm a little nervous about whether or not he can actually get more bizarre, but I guess we'll find out. Anyway, those are the things that happened on May 27th at the time of those alignments. So that's important to keep in mind, because that's part of predicting the events that are coming. And so now I'm going to go ahead and pull up a chart for May 29th, and when I show you the chart, you'll understand what it is that I'm trying to bring to your attention. Okay, so this is the Mars-Mercury return for May 29th, 2019. This is for Donald Trump. So the outer ring are the transits. Okay, that's what's in the sky. That's true for everybody on planet Earth, although I am using East Coast time, so it's exact. And this is Mars on his Mercury. Okay, so this is the transiting Mars in the sky at 5:12 p.m. in Washington, D.C., basically on the East Coast. And it's making an exact conjunction to his natal Mercury. Now, this is important because, as many of you may know, Mercury is related to things having to do with communication in the mind. So it's the way we think, it's the way we receive information, and it's the way we express ourselves. It's the way we communicate with the world and the technologies that we use to communicate. So Mars is the warrior, and it's a very fiery warrior energy. Now, on the light side, warrior of that warrior energy, it helps us to take action, and that's a good thing. The shadow side is it also represents conflict. So with Mars being the warrior and having this very fiery energy, it can also make a person reactive. So when you take that Mars warrior fiery energy and you can join it to someone's Mercury, they will tend to express themselves with more anger, with more fire. They will tend to be more reactionary. They will tend to get into more conflicts. And part of that is because it's because of the energy, but it's also because of the way that a person interprets their reality. So Donald Trump sees enemies all over the place. He's constantly in conflict with people because he has Mars conjunct his ascendant. So he's a reactionary person. He is very Mars-like and tends to get into conflicts very easily because that's part of his personality. So with Mars conjunct his Mercury, as we see here on May 29th, that's just intensifying this energy, this Mars warrior conflict-ridden energy, very reactionary. That's the way he's going to be thinking. That's the way he will interpret what people say, and he will react to it in a very fiery, angry, reactionary way. So that is actually already in effect, but it will peak on May 29th. And then Mars will continue moving forward into the 9th degree, the 10th degree, the 11th degree. And this is important because the new moon eclipse in July, on July 2nd, is at 10 degrees of Cancer. So Mars is going to move over that degree. So the reason why I'm focusing on Mars so much isn't just because of the energy and the effect that it has when it will conjoin his Mercury, but also the fact that Mars in astrology works as an activator, okay? So it's like when it's going through, it flips a switch. So when Mars hits a point in the chart, it's like it activates it. It's like it switches a flip. It flips a switch and turns it on. It activates that point, okay? That's why Mars is so important in the chart. And so it's not only impacting his Mercury, it's also flipping a switch. It's activating something. And again, the way that planets work, they always work on a bell curve, which means that the energy is rising as it moves toward it. It peaks when it is exact, and then it drops off. So it's peaking at this moment. It's already in effect, but it's peaking at this moment of May 29th at 5:12 p.m. Eastern Time. But it's not really going to drop off because of the fact that it's also going to hit that eclipse point when it crosses over the 10th degree. And so I'm going to actually switch now to the next chart I want to bring up, which is the June new moon in Gemini. Okay, so you can see that here. The sun and the moon conjunct, that's a new moon. And it's on the ascendant, which makes it even more powerful. That's Eastern Standard Time, 6:02 a.m., June 3rd. And as you can see, from the time of the last chart, which was May 29th, to this point in time, June 3rd, Mars has actually moved over the 10th degree, which is the point of the new moon eclipse on July 2nd. That would move us another month forward in time. And eclipses are also very important. So I'm going to bring that chart up so you can see it, but I just want you to keep that in mind. So May 29th, it conjoins his Mercury, and then it crosses over the 10th degree of the eclipse point, which will be July 2nd. And then here at the new moon eclipse on June 3rd in Gemini, Mars has moved past that. So Mars has done its job of activating those points, okay? So it's already starting. So you want to pay attention to what happens really from now until we get all the way through July. So about 2 months period of time. Watch what happens because something is building. So watch what happened on the 27th. Watch what happens on May 29th or very close to it. Watch what happens with this new moon. It's going to give us very important clues about what's going to happen with the July eclipse, okay? And again, new moons bring something new, and when they're in Gemini, they bring things related to Gemini. So information, new ways of thinking, new ways of communicating, and new information, and also the processes for bringing forth that new information. So I think some new information is going to come out with this new moon in Gemini, and I think it's also going to relate to his Mars conjunct his Mercury and conjunct the eclipse point. So keep that in mind. This information that will come out with this new moon is going to be absolutely tied to what is going to happen with the July eclipses. Okay, so now I'm going to take you to the next point, which is that Cancer new moon eclipse. So you can see this is the new moon, the sun conjunct the moon at 10 degrees of Cancer, 38 minutes. That's the eclipse point that I was talking about. So again, just to really quickly recap, Mars conjoins his natal Mercury on May 29th. Something very important will come with that. Then it crosses over this eclipse point at 10 degrees, 38 minutes of Cancer. And then at the new moon in Gemini, it's at 11 degrees. So it's hovering around this point, okay? Then when we move forward to July 2nd and we actually see that Cancer new moon eclipse, we will see another very important event take place. And this will be the most important. The eclipse points will be the most important. So whenever Mars hits a degree, it triggers something. It turns the switch on, okay? It activates that point in the chart, and it activates an event. That's how you are able to find the timing of events. So Mars is a huge part of that. Do you want to watch what happens with Mars, especially what happened on the 27th, what will happen on the 29th, what will happen on June 3rd, and then that will give us clues about what's going to happen with this new moon eclipse on July 2nd. So I'm going to go ahead and make a prediction. I think I'm going to guess about two things. One is the impeachment debate that's been going on. I think that the new moon eclipse and the full moon eclipse, which is the next chart I'm going to show you, in July, with these eclipses, we are going to see some decisions made. Will they impeach or will they not impeach? That's been the debate that's going on. And with this, with these eclipses that are coming in July, they're going to make a decision. And I'm going to predict that they are going to move in the direction, like more formally in the direction of impeachment. So up to this point, they have not been willing to do that formally. Yeah, there's a debate going on. Some say yes, some say no. Some say we're not ready. Whatever the reasons are, they haven't actually taken formal steps. They've just been debating it. And, you know, of course, having investigations, sending out subpoenas and things like that. But I think with the new moon eclipse, and then especially the full moon eclipse, which I'll show you next, they're going to move formally toward impeachment. Now, the first step in the impeachment process is the inquiry. And they've been doing inquiries, they've been doing investigations, but they haven't used the term impeachment inquiry or impeachment investigation. They haven't formally used that word yet. So that's the first step, and I think that they will begin to use that actual word. They will make it formal. The next step in the process is to bring articles of impeachment, and that requires a vote. So, so I think this is probably a good point for me to go ahead and bring up the next chart, but also look at this one with this new moon eclipse right over his Mercury and those points in the chart that Mars activated. That's where the new moon eclipse is. And also the midheaven is right on his Pluto. Now, Pluto rules empowerment. But if there are misuses of power or abuses of power, Pluto does not abide by that. It will literally rip the rug out from under your feet. And the midheaven is your public life, okay? It's the public sphere. It's the way that you are seen publicly, okay? So there's absolutely nothing private about the midheaven. It is totally public. And that's important because a lot of times when I'm doing astrological readings about a person like Donald Trump and I'm making predictions, some things may be happening behind the scenes where you can't see them. They're happening in private. They're happening behind closed doors where you can't see them. With the midheaven conjunct Pluto, this is all about power. And this will be absolutely 100% in the public sphere. Okay, so you can start to look, keep that in mind, look at those dates as we move toward it, but you can start to look toward July 2nd, and then the next eclipse, which I'm going to bring up that chart, July 16th. I'm going to predict that we actually are going to move more toward formally using the word impeachment. This isn't going to be a debate anymore. So that's what's coming. That's my prediction. And it will be out in the public sphere for everybody to see it. So I think, let me see if there's one more thing I want to say about that. Oh yeah, there is one more thing I want to say about that, which is there's one other possibility that might come into the mix, which is the conflicts with Iran and North Korea and the trade war with China. Those might also get activated. And I say that because of what happened on May 27th. So, so we'll see. Those are the two possibilities. I'm pretty sure about impeachment, the formal impeachment investigation and inquiry. Whether or not that will lead to articles of impeachment, that I'm not 100% sure about, but I definitely think we're moving toward formal impeachment proceedings. Okay, so let's go on to the next chart. Okay, so this is the full moon eclipse on July 16th, 5:38 p.m. Washington, D.C. This is very interesting because the sun here at 24 degrees Cancer 4 minutes is also conjunct the vertex, which is very important because the vertex is fate and destiny. The interesting thing about the vertex is vertex are things that you have no control over. They're destined to happen. They are fated to happen. Usually we think of fate as being something we're not wanting to happen, but it's going to happen anyway. Destiny is something we want to happen. But either way, whichever word you prefer to use, it's something that is going to happen. You know, you just don't really have a choice about it. It's like the path you are going down, whether you want to or not. And so there's something very fated about this full moon, and also very karmic because the full moon is conjunct Pluto. And as you can see, it's right over his natal Venus, and also Venus is conjunct the North Node. So there's something about this Venus energy that's going to play an important role, but it's also important to keep in mind that it's on his side of the chart. So he's the sun. The North Node is the direction of his evolution. And this is all conjoining this Venus energy. So there's something that is going to be on his side. I suggested it might be that he will align with the anti-abortion forces. And that's just a suggestion. That's just a possibility. I'm not 100% convinced that that's how this Venus is going to manifest itself, but in some way he's in alignment with it. So it's some kind of Venus energy that is lining up with him. Then on the other side is the moon, the full moon conjunct Pluto over his vertex. Again, there's the fate, the destiny. But full moon eclipses are powerful anyway. So the things that trigger events are Mars is one of the first, most powerful. And then lunations, both new moons and full moons, are also trigger points. And thirdly, eclipses. Eclipses are the most powerful. New moon eclipses are 3 times more powerful than a regular new moon, and full moon eclipses are 3 times more powerful than a regular full moon. But when you put a full moon conjunct Pluto, that is like an atom bomb exploding in a person's life. Now, this can be a good thing too. So what I want you to understand is that, like, it's all dependent on your own karma. It's all dependent on your own spiritual evolution and your own consciousness evolution. So you can get good things with these alignments just as easily as you can get bad things. It depends on who you are, how evolved you are, and how much karma you still have to deal with. Now, I think we can all look at Donald Trump and we could say he's got a lot of karmic baggage he needs to deal with. I don't think this is going to manifest in a positive way in his life. In fact, I think this full moon eclipse conjunct with the sun, conjunct the vertex, and in fact, Venus can rule the law, and conjunct the North Node could be basically saying he needs to be in alignment with the law. He is not above the law. So the fact that it's conjunct the North Node doesn't necessarily mean it will work in his favor if he's got a lot of karmic baggage to deal with. And then the full moon eclipse conjunct Pluto over here on his vertex is basically saying that, you know, it's like the Grim Reaper has come to collect. This is a full moon. That's powerful enough. It's a full moon eclipse, which makes it 3 times more powerful. It's conjunct the vertex on both sides, both on the sun side and on the moon side. And the full moon is conjunct Pluto, which is like an atom bomb going off in your life because it's that plutonic energy. And it's all about power. And power is on the other side. So this is what you consider your side. This is, you know, like you. So this is him. He's the sun. This is his side of the chart. This is other. This is people who are opposing him. These are the energies that are opposing him. And that's a full moon conjunct Pluto. So this is going to be like, I think that we are definitely going to see, I think we're going to go all the way to actually articles of impeachment. Like I said, there will have to be a vote, and then assuming they pass, then there's the trial. Okay, so so basically that's my prediction, is that's what we're going to be moving toward in July. Is this, they're not going to be debating impeachment anymore. They're going to make a decision. They're going to vote on it. And I don't think it's going to work in Donald Trump's favor. So the other thing to look at with this full moon is that it is squaring his natal Jupiter, which represents his the office of the presidency in his life. And so, yeah, it's definitely impacting the office of the presidency. And if you look at the other suggestion I made, which is possible hostilities with a foreign country, that's the other possible way that this might manifest. And it doesn't have to be one or the other. It could be both. I'm leaning more toward the impeachment, but in terms of my prediction, but it could also indicate, you know, these conflicts with foreign countries like Iran, North Korea, and the trade war with China. So the next chart I'm going to read, oh, and one other thing I want to mention about this is that Mercury is retrograde. when Mercury is retrograde, it means that we're going back into the past. It refers to things in the past. We are, in a sense, returning to things in the past, to reconsider things in the past, which would be pretty obvious regarding if and when Congress moves toward impeaching Donald Trump. That would be reflecting on things from the past, like the Mueller report and his finances from the past, his tax returns, anything like that. Okay, so the other thing, I guess one more thing I'll point out, which you'll also see in the next chart, is that Mars is almost over his Pluto and squaring Uranus. So I'll talk about that a little more when I bring up the other chart. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Okay, so this is the next day, July 17th, 2019, the day after the full moon eclipse. So let's go ahead and just recap real quickly. Again, there's Mercury retrograde. There's Mars. Now it's exactly conjunct his Pluto. And there's the midheaven again, making things public. So, so I guess the first thing I want to talk about is, what does that mean? Actually, I'm going to go ahead and point out the vertex here too, so I don't forget to mention that it's right over his natal sun conjunct North Node. So again, there's this really fated aspect about this, which also relates to the position of the full moon in June. Okay, so what's happening now, what's happening in June, and what's happening in July are all tied together. So you just want to keep your eye on these dates so that you can, you know, if you want to look at this the way that an astrologer does, or understand why I'm making the predictions I'm making, then this will help you, because it's all about timing triggers. So what happens when the planets or these other points in time are activating the chart, that tells us, when we see what happens on those days, that tells us what's coming the next time these points are activated. It gives us a clue to how the story is unfolding. That's why I like to think of it like an accordion. You just shrink it down, and then you look at the bumps and you can see, oh, okay, that it's like it's leaping from one thing to the next. Okay, so what does Mars conjunct Pluto mean? Well, again, Mars is the warrior, fiery energy, war, conflict, warrior, fire. You put that with Pluto, which is power. Pluto is the god of the underworld. The word Pluto and Platonic, and or I should say plutonium, are connected. It's interesting because Pluto was, you know, a philosopher, a Greek philosopher. I don't know why they chose the word Pluto for that, but or no, Plato, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm mixing up the two, okay. Oh boy, Donald Trump could really say something about me, couldn't he? All right, so, okay, so Mars is conjunct Pluto, not Plato, and that energy is very, yeah, like plutonic. I don't know if my words are coming out right, but hopefully you'll forgive me and not make fun of me, because I know Donald Trump would if you were watching this video. So, yeah, so it's going to be very explosive. Yeah, very, very, it can be violent too. I know I mentioned that in my last video. It can represent violence. Like I said, mass murders, I've seen them happen whenever Mars and Pluto are conjunct or opposite, or conjunct or opposite Uranus. So here we see it's not in the sky yet, or it will be in June. So I'll do another video about that when Mars is opposite Pluto in June. I'm not going to touch on that in this video though. just here we're looking at how Mars is conjunct his natal Pluto. So it's activating that within him, in his life, in his being, some kind of violence. So that's why I think that he will be really like viciously acting out, speaking out, you know, ripping people to shreds, his inner bully coming out, which does quite often, but I think it will be intensified with Mars conjunct Pluto. And it's also conjunct the midheaven, so it's going to be very public, but it's also squaring Uranus, so that Uranus energy gets pulled in there too. So I think he's going to be saying and doing a lot of very shocking things, very verbally violent. And that's why I'm a little bit nervous about these conflicts with foreign countries, because this might be a trigger point for that. I think that partly it's going to be because the impeachment is becoming formalized. It's no longer a debate. And he's going to be really lashing out because of that, like we have never seen before. And this is a form of violence, okay? Even if there's no actual bloodshed, it's still, the energy is very violent and it's very conflict oriented. And he is verbally abusive, so more of that will be happening at this time. So we'll see if that's the only way it manifests, or if possibly it will also manifest with conflicts with foreign countries and possibly mass murder. And the reason why I bring in the mass murder thing is because of the fact that his hate speech has triggered people to commit violence against others. So those three things. Definitely the impeachment is becoming formalized, possibly conflict with foreign countries, and possibly mass murder. And I know these are really unpleasant things to be confronted with, but the fact is we are seeing these things unfold. So, you know, we just need to prepare ourselves psychologically. If we do not get into a conflict with a foreign country, all the better, you know. If we don't see any more mass murder, all the better. So, you know, it's just a worst case scenario, but these are ways that this energy can manifest. Okay, I'm going to stop there for now because, you know, these videos can get really long. That's a lot of information to absorb. And again, I will be covering this as we move forward, because there's more I want to say about Pluto and Mars in June. And then as we move into July, when these things are actually happening, I'll be showing you how they're reflected in the charts as well. And then again, with the eclipses in January. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that. And I'm always thinking about the different levels of understanding of astrology that my viewers have, because some people are really up on what's happening politically. Some people really understand astrology and how to read the charts, whereas others, you know, really have not studied astrology at all. So I'm trying to be able to speak to both, you know, all levels of viewers. And so anyway, I hope that you enjoyed that information, and I'm going to go ahead and bring this to a close. So again, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. I am trying to bring up, you know, the subscriptions, because that helps me to get my voice out and get these videos out as suggested videos for people and build the community. And also, please share. If you like this video, please share with your friends and family and on social medias, again, to get the message out. And please like the video and feel free to make comments, and I will do my best to respond to everyone. So again, I thank you for visiting. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon.